So I mean, the and the basis for that suit is supposedly that they were intentionally trying to affect the outcome of the election by editing uh, Kamala's answer to a question, and in reality, it turned out that it was the same answer broken up in two parts for timing purposes, which happens all the time in TV because of the limited amount of space. But nevertheless, the point I'm trying to make is that Trump, uh, his words mean nothing in terms of truth, that is, but yet Congress, as you referred to, seems to be completely welded to him in a way that's where they're inextractable. Whatever he says goes, no matter whether it makes sense or not. And you got to figure why are these intelligent people, these people in Congress, lawyers, doctors, professionals, what that are supposed to be there to protect and preserve and ensure that the rights of the people, all the people, by the way, and that's another issue. In Trump's world, the only people that he cares about apparently are the 79 million or so that voted for him. The 75 who didn't apparently don't exist anymore, or their views don't matter because he never talks about them. He always talks about this landslide that he got of 1.5%. But in any event, how do we exist? How does democracy exist in a situation where the so-called three co-equal branches, two of the three branches seem to be under the complete domination of the one branch being the executive? How does that what does that say about democracy in this country?
Well, I'll say this. I was talking to someone recently about this and how Congress has been surprising. It doesn't matter if you're conservative, independent, or liberal. Um, most people with power don't give it up easily. Congress has basically handed over power to the president, or if they haven't handed over, they haven't pulled it back. What he's doing, he's gone beyond his authority as a president. The reason, and this is for our viewers, the reason he's doing tariffs is he claiming he has to protect us from fentanyl crisis. And fentanyl is so important that he has to bar the border between Mexico and America, between Canada and America, and between China and America. So that's how he's able to do tariffs. Tariffs are a tax. He doesn't do tax. That's Congress, and Congress they've been solid, and they're solid in a way that's been surprising. The liberals and conservatives. The liberals have said, "Well, we got to go along. If it's not, it'll be much worse. Much worse than what? I don't know how you get much worse than what you have now. They're going along with no opposition. The conservatives are afraid to oppose them because they're afraid of losing their seat. Typically, when you see in other countries where you see a person come into power and they're a dictator, people are afraid of the military or afraid of their force. Here it's different. They're not afraid of Trump. They're afraid of the voters that vote for Trump. They're afraid of not being reelected. The reason they have town halls and they stopped having town halls in this country because conservatives were going to town halls and people were pissed off. So they figure, I'm not going to no more town halls. Out of sight, out of mind. We can keep pushing through Trump's agenda and hopefully we'll get reelected. That can't be the right strategy, and it's foolhardy and is losing your authority for no valid reason. Um, every president we've seen, we saw it with Obama, we saw it with Biden, we saw it with Clinton, we saw it with Bush. There's a give and take, a pull and tug between Congress and the presidency for what should happen. Even when Obama had both houses, he still had a pull and pull, a pull and push. Um, Trump doesn't have that. And until Congress gets real about what's going on, I've seen some conservatives come out recently when Qatar offered to give Trump a very expensive jet and even some conservatives like, hold on, hold on, maybe we're going too far. They said it verbally, but they didn't stop anything. Nothing's been stopped so far. There's been people speaking out like, yeah, the school system, maybe we should hold on to that. But they haven't given any real opposition. And until they get their things in order, they're going to continue to follow what Trump says because they're fearful they won't get reelected. That's part of the process. Unfortunately,
Well,
the person we have in office is taking control of it. He's running, he's jamming things as much as he can, as soon as he can, as fast as he can.
yeah, you still are throwing around those terms, liberals and conservatives. I'm going to try to deal with it on this show because I don't think we have enough time. That's going to take at least an hour to drill down and figure out what the heck a liberal is and what a conservative is and who decides which is which. and whether the decision applies across the board or whether it's made on an issue by issue basis. And again, who makes that decision? But getting back to this $400 million refurbished 747 jumbo jet that, as I understand it, was originally manufactured for the royal family in Qatar, and now all of a sudden is to be gifted to Trump, and he eventually to his library. Well, it's my understanding from what I read is that a few things. Number one, Trump's Attorney General Pam Bondi was once a registered lobbyist for the country of Qatar. In fact, that may have been she may have served in that role immediately preceding her appointment or confirmation as the Attorney General. Now and then all of a sudden, the gift of this jet, which the process of refurbishing it obviously wasn't done during Trump's 4-day visit. That the decision to refurbish it as a gift for Trump had to have been made many, many months ago. In fact, I hear some Republicans are now blaming Biden for the fact that Qatar decided to refurbish a jet to give to Trump. I mean, Biden's responsible for anything that you don't like. If you don't like it, it's Biden's fault. But anyway, so you got Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, giving an opinion that the gift to Trump doesn't violate the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution, which basically prohibits foreign countries, prohibits elected officials, the president, from receiving gifts from foreign countries. You've got Pam Bondi giving a legal opinion saying that's okay. The same Pam Bondi who, within the last couple of years at least, was a registered lobbyist for the country that's making the gift. Now, the big question that nobody addresses that I've heard or read anything about is, what's Qatar getting out of this? Are they just given a $400 million plane that was manufactured and created for the royal family? They just decided to give it to Trump out of the goodness of their heart? What are the deals that were made and for whose benefit? Are we looking at deals like others, like for the benefit of Elon Musk, where they agreed to use Starlink, his SpaceX internet company, to provide internet service, the same as occurring now in Ukraine? Was it a deal for Peter Thiel? Was it a deal for his daughter Ivanka to expand her perfume and cosmetic line from China down to Qatar? But somebody, maybe I'm just overly suspicious, but I just don't believe that Qatar up and decided to give away a $400 million plane and somebody not making money off of the transaction. I just don't believe it.
So I'm actually shocked at you. I have no idea why you would assume that Qatar wouldn't give a plane to the U.S. president out of the kindness of their heart. I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Of course they would. They would give one of the most luxurious planes known to man to the U.S. president because he likes it and he wants it. As far as the emoluments clause, get rid of it. Get rid of it. When he was in office the first term, Trump Hotel made so much money of people coming in and using the hotel as a way to give thanks to Trump and to show fealty to Trump. His daughter has made a bunch of money, and we can do a separate show on how much money the family has made since he's been president. His son-in-law is a billionaire now. They made a whole bunch of money. Every president gains wealth from the office. They typically gain wealth from the back end. Famously, Bill Clinton and Hillary left broke, and then after leaving the presidency, they made and amassed millions by doing speaking engagements. Michelle and Barack certainly had money coming in from his book and from their works together before office, but they made substantial money on a speaking circuit after. Trump didn't wait for the speaking circuit. He didn't need that. They're making money in real time. The emoluments clause was meant to prevent people from being bought and paid by foreign countries, and we've ignored it. And basically, Roberts has suggested that Trump can't commit a crime. So if he can't commit crimes, I don't even know why we have the emoluments clause. I guess we need to bring someone on, a constitutional law scholar, and have them explain to us why we have it and how we can use it, because it hasn't been used and no one cares about it.
Why should the emoluments clause limit Trump when no other provision of the Constitution apparently does? I mean,
I
when he
agree.
was
Agree.
asked during the interview on NBC, I think it was, was he bound by, was he obligated to enforce the Constitution? He said, I don't know. I mean, here's the president of the United States who took an oath to protect and enforce the Constitution of the United States. When asked about it, about whether or not he had a duty to do that, says, I don't know. Maybe that results from the fact that at the time of his inauguration, I never saw him put his hand on the Bible. I mean, there were two there. There was the Trump Bible, of course, embellished in its gold trim. That I think Imani, what his wife's name, I guess, was holding, and I think there was another Bible present, but I don't recall that he put his hand on either one of them. So maybe he never took the oath of office. Maybe that's why he's saying he's not sure whether he's obligated to uphold and abide by the Constitution. He certainly has put the Supreme Court. He's warned the Supreme Court now. Don't be fooled by these radical, crazy Democrats. And anybody who says anything that he doesn't like is radical, crazy, leftist, whatever bad name he can jumps into his brain at that particular time, that comes out of his mouth. And it's all because you disagree with him. People have lost, even in people who've had jobs in the federal government, the lawyers in the Department of Justice who had jobs on, near Pennsylvania Avenue, all of a sudden were relocated to Oregon because they had the audacity to state an opinion well supported by law, but contrary to the desires of the president. I mean, law, and we can't, and that's the difficulty in really talking about Trump, is that we're forced to talk about him in terms of what laws permit, but we're talking about somebody who's completely lawless. I mean, there have been 310 lawsuits filed against Trump in a little more than 100 days this has been in office. There have been scores of injunctions, temporary, preliminary, and in one case, at least permanent, for his violations of the Constitution. He's the only president in the 20th century to try to invoke an 18th century law as a basis of some new immigration policy. I mean, Trump's, if there is such a thing as a horse of a different color, it certainly is Trump.
Well, I want to move on some, if you don't mind, Bob, because we're getting low on time. And we started off on education, and the two principles was gender ideology and critical race theory. We didn't really get into gender ideology and how Trump is pushing. Most Americans weren't for and didn't support the transgender rights movement, and they didn't support the bathroom situation. That was a way where they were able to push it down the liberals' throats. But I want to move on to Dr. Carla Hayden. I know recently in the news, she was in Congress and she ultimately lost her job. Dr. Carla Hayden is a former CEO of the Baltimore Enoch Pratt Free Library. She's also a former president of the American Library Association. She was the first woman to be appointed to the library in the Congress, and the first and only African American to be appointed to that position. And she was fired by the president in short order. Now, it's weird, and I was telling you this, Bob, the other day. The library and the Congress, you assume as separate equal institutions, Congress and executive, they would have total control over who was at the Library of Congress. But he decided that he didn't want her there. I think he appointed one of his lawyers to be the librarian in Congress after he fired this esteemed librarian with years and years and years experience in as a librarian, and to hire one of his lawyers to step in is a bit offensive. But I wanted to talk about Dr. Hayden, one, because certainly she's started off and did much work in Baltimore, but on a national scale, her reputation was unmatched. There was no indication that she did anything but excellence. There was some concern from conservatives, I know you hate the word, that she was supporting liberal ideas. I think the fact that because the library had books in it and the books they didn't like, they were upset by it. I've never been a fan of banning books. Idea that you would ban a book because you don't like it. It's many books that are horrible, are bigoted, are racist, are biased, and they're there. And you wouldn't see me out there burning books for that reason. If someone wanted to have Mein Kampf somewhere, I'm not gonna say you can't have it here because it's hateful. words are words, and you can write them down. And it doesn't mean I got to read it or like it. But the idea that they were angry because she had books, which I'm assuming were liberal books or books about blacks. I'm assuming. I have no idea. But the idea that her choice and selection was inappropriate mean you want a different librarian. Um, it's too easy for us to, and it seems like, and I could be wrong, and I want to hear from our viewers at some point. It seems to me the administration has animus towards African Americans. Either one, we're not qualified for things, and we're there because we DEI, or two, we are qualified for things, and we're more qualified than they are, but we're not there because DEI. Either way, we them we do them if we don't. And I'm not sure. I know there's blacks who support Trump and they feel like Trump can do a great job, and they're about money and he's a conservative. I would say and argue it's not true. The fact that taxes may be better for you doesn't mean the life is better for you. Most Americans in this country who are black have relatives who are poor. Oprah, although she's a billionaire, had relatives who are poor. That means that the buck don't stop with Oprah; it stops with the lowest member of the community. So if in fact policies are in place to help you, but your mother isn't helped, or your brother isn't helped, or your cousin isn't helped, or your uncle isn't helped, it doesn't quite make sense that it helps you as well. If you're one out of a million, eh, you have enough means to support your people and not follow along. The Trump administration has acted in a way that has been clearly adverse to blacks, and there has to be something said about it. I mean, we walk around, we tiptoe around the DEI conversation, even when blacks are excellent and exceptional. They use DEI to defame us and to push us away. And Trump came in, he fired women, he fired black folks, whether it's in the military, whether it's in government, whether it's in employment, federal employment. That's been his strategy, and there's been no lawsuit that I've seen about discrimination or about bias, even though his staff and his people who support him are openly biased.
Well, he got rid of the Civil Rights Division in whatever federal department still exists. He got rid of the Civil Rights Division. He shut down the Minority Business Development Agency in the Department of Commerce. He got, as I said earlier, he got rid of Jackie Robinson and he wanted to get rid of Harriet Tubman exhibit in the Smithsonian. And he got rid of he fired the chief of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So I don't have any, and he's surrounded by Stephen Miller, not just Elon Musk, but Stephen Miller, a devout racist, as his deputy chief of staff, Steve Bannon, who was there with Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. So, and David Duke. So there's no question in my mind that when you sit at a table and these people are not just there, but invited guests, and in fact constitute the representatives of your so-called base, the MAGA, whatever it's pronounced, MAGA base, then that, birds of a feather flock together. I mean, there's certain adages that just don't change. So I don't have any doubt that Trump has, as I said earlier, Trump has declared war, and and he's responsible for the conduct and the actions of those around him. I don't really care what he personally is aware of. He reads very little, I suspect. Because he really doesn't care what anybody thinks but him. And in that regard, what do you think about this attack on the First Amendment? I mean, on college campuses, if you have the audacity to say something against what you believe to be the unjustified killing of Palestinians, automatically that makes you anti-Semitic. And if you're a foreign student, that makes you subject to deportation. What do you think about that?
I think it's interesting. Years ago, my daughter was getting ready to go to college, and we did tours around several universities, and one of them was UVA. UVA has a great campus, and we went down there, and we was on campus, and we were getting toured by one of the students, and she mentioned what happened in Charlottesville, and me not thinking, I'm like, what happened in Charlottesville? She's like, what you mean, what happened? Have a higher? I'm like, we talk. Oh, I remember, and then she mentioned how the Klan had marched on campus. And we were on the corridor or the area where they marched down. There was an area where there were dorms on either side, and there was a long greenery where students were outside sitting down and reading and writing and hanging, places where kids go. And so I'm like, tell me what happened again. She's like, yeah, the Klan marched. Students were here. Some students weren't in, but it was students here. I couldn't imagine, and I guess they had a permit. They were able to march legally on campus. The Klan is an organization that has been hateful and been designed and dedicated to the hatred of blacks. They had a history of lynching and killing black people throughout this country. Although they identify as being Christian, they wear hoods and they historically have gone around. And people see movies like Rosewood where they have the torches and the hoods and the hanging people. That's a reality. The Klan did kill people, and they are a white supremacist organization, and they have wanted the destruction of the black community. At UVA today, there are black students there. No one saw a problem with giving them a permit or allowing them, however they were able to do it, to march on campus. And their political view can't be mistaken. Their political view is that if you're black, you don't belong here. They marched with free speech. And free speech isn't only words, it's also actions. They were able to have free speech and march on campus, even though people may have been terrified. Um, I'm certain if I was somewhere as a student and the Klan was marching, I would have been terrified. I think they may have had torches, if I recall, and that was allowed, and there was no outcry about why they were allowed on campus. And the Klan has continued to go around the country, not only the Klan but skinheads around the country and black communities in protest. They do marches and they do walks, and again, it's about intimidation and fear. But again, it's allowed because in this country we value free speech. I've been surprised about the fact that in universities they're curtailing speech the way they are when they haven't curtailed it in situations where black people, my history, my background, have been abused and harmed and faced real violence. The Klan and the skinheads have inflicted real violence on blacks. When the FBI, every year the FBI do reports on racial violence in the country. In most years, if not all, blacks are the victims of most of it. At the top of the list is blacks. Even during 9/11, when had an uptick in violence towards immigrants from the Middle East, blacks still was up here. And there's been an open policy that in this country we believe in free speech. So even though people could be vile and despicable, we allow them to talk. Universities hold a special place in this country where they're a place where people can have free exchange of ideas. To say that university is telling people, well, you can't do that here now because we said so. The administration said we don't like it, so we can't do it. It's changed the culture and the nature of universities in the country in a way that doesn't make sense. And I know Harvard's pushing back. More schools should push back. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the point? What's the point of having an institution where you can talk about things when you can't discuss things? I mean, the reality is Palestinians are they're being killed. I mean, there's no every organization who's been to the Middle East and have seen the area, have seen the numbers and the fatalities, have said it's basically genocide. They're killing them in untold numbers. Not only adults who may be perpetrators or agitators, they're killing children. They're killing innocent people writ large without any kind of remorse.
In order, is your free speech only free if it's true? Don't you have the right? Don't you have the right to say something in this country in anyway, even if you know it's false? You still have free speech. Don't you have a constitutional right to say it? Because if you don't, there's a whole that you got to build a lot more prisons for a lot of these politicians, including Trump. Because if it's illegal, if your right to publish a lie or to say something that's not true isn't protected under the Constitution, then we got a whole lot of violators out there, and I know over 500 of them that's sitting over in D.C. right now.
I think the distinction between truth and falsity is of no consequence. If it's free speech, it's free speech.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
If you can't, I mean, there are instances, and the law has provided, if it like yelling fire in a crowded theater, if your speech will cause imminent harm, then yes, it could be legislated and limited. But the reality is, in these places, these people are protesting. These are political speech, which are given more power and given more protection than normal speech. So even at the higher level of political speech, they're still saying if you do it here, you won't get a degree and you won't be able to walk across the stage. The university should be ashamed of themselves for even going along this folly. Because what you're doing is you're inviting people to challenge you. The more you say, well, you can't say that here, people are going to want to know why. Young people are going to want to know why, and they're going to push back and do more. Hence what's going on in Colombia now. They have more and more protests. It's not going to stop. People are still being killed. So it's not like things have stopped and things have died down.
And I read that the latest of the educational institutions or higher education institutions that may be that may be facing the cutting block as such, it might be Johns Hopkins, which is a recipient of millions of dollars in federal research grants and so forth. That unless they bow down and agree to eliminate all so-called DEI policies and any kind of racial preference policies, that they may, like Columbia, Harvard, and the other schools, may be subject to having their funds reduced or completely eliminated. And we've hardly talked about the effect of Trump's anti-black, anti-DEI policy on black schools. And I intentionally and deliberately don't refer to them as HBCUs, because I think that people forget that that the basis and for them being created originally or historically still exist. So I don't want to refer to them historically as though they no longer have as though there's no longer a need for them. In fact, I would submit there's a greater need today. But in any event, this anti-free speech position and anti-DEI position is as evidence in one or more of Trump's 100 or so executive orders could have a particularly devastating effect on black colleges and universities. Do you agree with that?
I'll say this: the administration is trying their damnedest to ruin one of the American crown jewels. The crown jewel of this country is our education system. Our colleges and universities are admired around the world. Um, whether it's the Ivy Leagues or whether it's the premier schools like NYU or Cornell, or maybe Cornell considered Ivy too, or I don't know, American University, or the HBCUs or black schools as you call them, like Howard and Morgan. We have a system of schools from East Coast to West Coast, from South to North, that are exceptional, that are impeccable, that provides elite education for students to do anything, any walk of life. When you change and you diminish them, you make them less appealing, not only to our students but to foreign students. We've seen a precipitous drop in students coming to the U.S. for education since Trump has been the president. One, because they feel like, in fact, he's racist and he don't want them in the country, which may be true. But the quality of the schools are seen to have taken a hit. When the administration can come in and say, "Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that," it changes the view that people have, and I think rightly so, of these being valuable things. As far as his push on black schools, that's still out to be questioned. I know recently a bunch of HBCUs went to the White House and they talked to Trump, and he decided to not make an order relating to them recently. We'll see how long that lasts. I think he's kind of been hands off with them recently. I don't know why. I don't know who he knows or who knows him personally that had led them to get him to kind of back off of them. But he hasn't been as averse to them as I would have assumed he has been, based on his view on DEI. I mean, because the reality is most black schools are a walking, talking DEI. It's mostly black. So the idea that he's pushing against the university bringing black students into schools, except for HBCUs, that may change soon. I suspect that may change in fairly short order. I think there's going to be a push because there are some places in the country where HBCUs are the closest university around. Maybe somewhere like Eastern Shore, UMES. That's the closest school around in the immediate area to the population. It may be a push to move those HBCUs to being a non-HBCU university. You just have a university writ large and get rid of the HBCU portion. The conservatives have suggested that they don't see, as you said, they don't see that there exists a continued position of blacks where they're suffering negatively based on slavery, based on Jim Crow, based on separate but equal. They see that the situation is equal. It's an equal playing field. So there's no need for the support that blacks have been asking for, like our own universities. I think that's not true. I think it's false, and I think they're ignoring the reality of what's going on. But we'll see. I think things may change fairly soon, and when it does change, we'll talk about it.
Interesting. We're going to leave on with an interesting question that I'm going to pose, and maybe our viewers between now and next Friday may have a chance to think about it. What does it mean in 2025 to be a black college or university? What does it mean in 2025 to be a black anything, a black bank, or a black insurance company, or a black whatever, or a black contractor even? What does that mean in 2025 particularly in light of Project 2025 and Trump's administration of that manual? Thank you for listening in to us today on another episode of Money, Power, and Politics. Enough is enough. For my co-host Hassan Barnes, And for me, Robert DeShiel, see you next Friday.
Take care, guys.